Alrighty, welcome to the City of Troy Board of Park Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, February 6th. Abby, please call the roll.
Mr. Emmerich?
Here.
Mr. Harrelson? Anderson?
Here.
All are present.
Awesome. The first thing on the agenda is going to be the approval of our minutes from January 9th. Is there any additions or commentary about the January 9th minutes?
Move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion, there's a second. We will, sorry, Abby, what am I doing here? What am I?
I can call the roll.
Call the roll, let's
All
do that.
right, Mr. Emmerich?
Yes,
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Minutes
Thanks.
approved.
Thank you. We'll get moving to our reports. Mr. Drake?
Good afternoon. I've got nothing to add to my report. I do want to update the board that I actually met with Austin and Tim Davis and Doug Winning, actually, and we're working on updating the park's conditions and needs assessment. So that was one thing we talked about, I know, when we toured last summer. So that is in the works. Thank you to Jacqueline Tyler, who's going to be going around to kind of update the conditions of current equipment in our park system. Along with that, we're being included in the city's comprehensive plan as an update to include the park system as a whole. So we hope to have a lot of that information back, at least the conditions and needs assessment, by the time we tour in July. So hopefully, moving forward, that'll help as we look at capital improvements and those kind of things to update equipment and so forth. So all that is in the works.
Awesome. So this is something done outside of what we've done historically, right? We've done our park tour, we've done our long-range planning with 3 years.
Yeah.
This is part of the city needs.
Yeah, five-year plan. This is kind of, Austin actually started that, I believe, 2017. We put that out, and then you guys had the copy of the 2017-2018 version of that. But it's time we really need to get that updated. A lot of those budget items that were identified have been completed. Some of that equipment has been replaced, and so this will be a better, more current picture of where we are with our asset management and conditions of current assets in our park system.
Okay.
Jeremy, how detailed is the comprehensive plan as it addresses the park department versus, from a
So we want
zoom out or zoom in perspective?
Yeah, one of the things we started to look at, one of the things we talked about was things like future land use, connectivity, parks per capita, park land per capita, and how we compare to National Recreation and Park Association has metrics out for how we compare, nationally for what the national standards are. So all those things will be taken into account. We're not going to drill down. We could take it a little bit further at a higher expense. We're not going to drill down into the nitty-gritty of labor and management and how many park employees and that kind of thing. Maybe we get this data back on this round. Maybe that's something we look at in the future for growth of the department as the city continues to grow and how many park personnel and those kind of things. But that won't be on what we get back this year for the comprehensive plan.
I would also add, as a part of this, we did a community survey, which we received like 680 responses, and I'll go through some of those responses of our existing park system when I get to my report also.
I know that when we talked last summer, one of the ideas was as we approach new subdivision growth, and I know we understand some new data points that we didn't have at that time as to how we fare against national standards and averages, but it would still be nice to eventually have this board have some type of strategic plan if it's merely spun off from the data that we do collect from the city as a whole, or if we take that and kind of create our own concept of what guides our vision going forward.
For sure. I think that's imperative to move forward, and that'll be the ultimate goal, for sure.
Thank you.
The North Market Ball Diamonds,
Yes.
Any updates there on how that's going other than?
Yeah, it's been slow. Obviously, you can see construction has started. The weather really delayed. We're waiting on the block layer to get back. They've come back. Actually, in the last week, made quite a bit of progress. So right now, the block is being laid. Once that's in place, it'll be backfilled with the gravel and prepared for concrete to be poured. So Coach Beeler is still hoping to have that wrapped up before their spring season starts, but we're already, a little over a month away from practices beginning. So hopefully weather will cooperate and they can continue to track along the way they have in the last week and a half or so.
Okay, maybe we can get an update next meeting, just where they're at with that and see if
Yeah.
it's getting behind schedule or what.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Drake? Mr. Seiler?
Really, the only thing I have today is item number 1 on my reports related to the concert events at Treasure Island Park for the summer, and requesting the Director of Public Service and Safety to enter into non-ticketed use agreements for these concert events, as well as a temporary activation of the DORA on the June 22nd and August 3rd dates. Those two particular dates we will intend, and as we have in the past, to sell alcohol for those concert events.
So that's not on the agenda yet today, that's upcoming, you saying? Or I'm sorry, it is.
They're both on there.
I'm sorry.
They're on my report.
On your report, okay.
Yeah.
I guess in the events, any questions about the events, real quick, for Mr. Seiler at all? And if not, so the next thing is, so you want us to take motion on both of these then? I'm sorry? Okay. Let me pull this up real quick. All right. So the first item on the, for motion here is to recommend for council to authorize the Director of Public Service and Safety to enter into a non-ticketed use agreement for concerts for Treasure Island for the park for summer '24. The 24 dates are listed, are June 22nd and August 3rd. Is there a motion on that?
So moved.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Awesome. Abby, you want to call the roll on that?
Yep, Mr. Emmer?
Yes?
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay. And, I'm sorry, Ken, what was the second item there?
For temporary activation of the DORA for the June 22nd and August 3rd dates for
Okay.
Treasure Island Park.
Is that on here? I'm sorry, I missed that one.
It is not on that one.
Okay.
I move for temporary activation of the DORA for Treasure Island Park as requested by Ken, the Recreation Director.
Yep, and I can second that. Abby, you want to call the roll on that?
Yep, Mr. Emmer?
Yes?
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, thank you. Anything else for Mr. Seiler? Thursday, doors open at what time?
6:30.
6:30. Is an opening at?
Yes, there is.
All right.
8 o'clock.
Inquiring minds want to know. All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'll be there. Mr. Boer is not here today. He is attending the golf course, but he included his report, mentioned they're very busy with activity due to the warm weather. I say warm, but in the 50s here as of late, so that's positive. I have nothing for the Planning Commission report to date right here, so we can move on to new business. Item 1 is a consideration of the Troy Noon Optimist placing flags on the levee. Is there anyone here to represent for that? Yeah. Please come forward and state your name and address.
My name is Julie Vanderveer. My address is 619 Willow Point Court, and that's in Troy. I'm the flag committee chair for the Troy Noon Optimist Club. We received a generous donation from, just drew a blank, a construction company, and I can't say the name right now. But we want to put flags on the levee for Memorial Day, and we would put them out on Friday, May 24th, and bring them back in on Tuesday, May 28th. And that depends on weather. We can't bring them in if it's raining because the flags have to be dry, but usually the weather cooperates with us. So then we want to put them back out for Flag Day. We would put them back out on June 12th and leave them out through the 4th of July and bring them in Monday, July 8th. And then we usually put them out again for Labor Day. We normally always put them on the levee for Patriots Day. So we want to put them out earlier and have them out for Labor Day. and leave them for Patriots Day. And then the cross-country, Troy cross-country, requests that we leave them out for their cross-country meet. So we would then pick them up September 22nd. That's a Sunday.
Okay. And so from a
And
park...
it's Harlow Brothers that donated the money. I just drew a blank.
Well, thank you for them for doing that. It's one of our favorite things, so thank you there.
I'm sorry.
So, from a park department standpoint, it's just gonna be maintenance for us to mow around those?
Yeah, no, I don't, the only issue I could see potentially if you have bad weather on the 28th, with Strawberry Festival being the following weekend, you know, no matter.
We're aware of that. That's why we, wanted
Yeah,
to take them down. But
You know, from our standpoint, otherwise, no issues at all, and I think it's a nice addition and a nice gesture on the levy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a motion that needs to be made here, Abby, or we just can accept it?
I move to approve as requested.
Yeah, and I'll second that. Abby, you wanna call the roll?
Mr. Emmer?
Yes.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank
you so much. Yeah, absolutely. And, Jeremy, just keep us updated if there's anything that we need to do or anything comes out with those dates, so. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Liberty Meadow subdivision. Is there anybody who wants to, speak to that? I know we have a couple people in the audience. Austin, you wanna?
Yeah, you want me to
start? Yeah, let's start there.
Okay, so this subdivision came through in 2021. The subdivision has expired, so that's why you're seeing it again. They have to go back through both Park Board and Planning Commission. So the Park Board did approve this in 2021. The subdivision is 86.275 acres, which equates to 179 buildable lots. The developer is not proposing to provide any parkland and is requesting a review from the Park Board to consider fees in lieu of instead of the 3%, which would amount to about 2.5 acres of parkland. In accordance with the subdivision regs, the Park Board and Planning Commission may accept fees in lieu of instead of open space. By accepting fees in lieu of, this would result in about $89,500 in the Park and Recreation capital budget. This assumes that all 179 lots are built. So as you're aware, we kicked off a comprehensive plan with our consultant, American Structure Point. With that comprehensive plan, we did a community survey that was made public for several months. We received 670 responses to that survey. Going through, we had two park-specific questions. One of them was, do you feel that Troy has enough parks and green space? Of those about 670 responses, 61% state that we have just the right amount, and 14% state that, yes, we do have the right amount, but they would like some updates to the existing inventory. So that equates to 75% of our survey responses were that the general consensus is the community felt that they were happy with the existing park infrastructure. We also had a conversation with Chris Piper, the school superintendent, about the plans for Cookson Elementary. When the new school would be built, they are planning on making improvements, and it will still have a park there, which is about 0.4 miles from the proposed subdivision. So there is access to a park there as well. Looking through some comparisons to the NRPA standards, generally speaking, communities that service 20,000 to 49,000 residents service about 2,240 residents per park. We are at 732 residents per park, so we service 3 times more than the national average with our existing inventory. So it is requested that the staff recommends that the Board of Park Commissioners recommend to the Planning Commission to accept fees in lieu of instead of the proposed parkland in this case.
Thanks. And so, you said the closest park right now is gonna be Cookson?
Yes, sir.
And that's gonna go through the school renovation. Do we know if that park's gonna be shut down at all when they go through that renovation, or do we know what that's gonna look like construction schedule-wise?
I don't know the time frame for shutdowns at this point, but we were assured that the amount of playground equipment and ball fields would stay the same when the new equipment's here.
Okay. So this came up in like, when was it? I'm sorry, 2021?
Yeah,
The last time it came up, and I guess I'm the only one who was here at that time when that came up. And some of the discussion centered around, there was, I believe, Halifax right across the street that had some public space that was there at the time that we kind of debated and had some conversation around is, hey, is that accessible? Is that across the road? Can people from the subdivision get over there if necessary? So I think that's a lot of the discussion we originally had in 2021 when I went back and looked at the minutes on it. Is there, Mr. Whidden, I know you're out there. Did you want to come up and speak? And I know we have Mr. Harlow here too, or anybody else who wanted to comment on the topic.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Whidden, 1329 Vicksburg Court. I represent the First Ward on Troy City Council, which encompasses the neighborhood that this subdivision would go into. I'm asking the Park Board to give a negative recommendation to this proposal. My consideration is this. I think we have a great park system in Troy. The number of parks listed on the information provided, say 37. I was assuming that number was closer to 36 of actual available green space and parkland. My problem is that none of that parkland will be in the First Ward. We have now just voted a memorandum of understanding with the Troy City Schools to relinquish Campbell Park. That would not have a park at all in the First Ward. With that and the relinquishment of, is it Cookson Park as well? We'll be down 2 parks. So if we accept this and take green space, you would say that we now have a reduction in the number of parks still, picking up 1. You would say, I'm not assuming that we will have no responsibility at the schools. Mr. Tedrington has let me know that. But saying this might not be an increase in our maintenance that we're doing right now. In addition, I know that we could accept school playground equipment from the schools that are closing, so that might be a cost that we could save putting a park in there. This came up before at the original Planning Commission. Some of the information was slightly skewed and not relevant to today's discussion, so I'd like to say that we look at it from a brand new perspective, what we're dealing with now. We have a lot of great information from the survey about what we got, but my main concern again is that there's a lack of parkland in the First Ward. I'm not saying every time we build a new subdivision, we need to put in a new park or a pocket park it is. But I think in this case that we do. It'd be great going forward, whether we had standards saying where do we need to put a park, how do we need to space them out, do we have enough land? But in this instance, I think we do need to put a park there.
Any questions for Mr. Whidden on that? Thoughts on that portion of it? I mean, clearly this...
Well, yeah, but
No.
Austin, do you have any feedback to that? I mean, from staff perspective?
I don't have any additional feedback outside of the metrics.
The park, so at Campbell, we're still going to have property eventually, right? We're just reducing from 2 ball fields to 1, correct? Is what it is?
Well, it's my understanding that all went to the school, and we need to go back and look at that. If I could, with the caveat that we still have access or
To the ball field.
public still has access to that school property.
Okay.
If I could, one thing I want to point out here is that we had park property just adjacent to where Liberty Meadows is proposed to go in Hunter's Ridge. And that was park property that the previous board deemed surplus and we sold. I have a real issue with developing or taking and opening park space with no plan for future development. So that we end up with like a stone bridge that's set there as green space that we mow and maintain, but no plan for future development. One thing I did recently, I drafted a kind of a replacement schedule for current playground equipment. And we've got 13 playgrounds right now that are beginning to age out, so over the next 10 years, basically, we're faced with replacing 13 playgrounds in the park system at a pretty extensive cost to the city to be able to do that. So that's something I feel like the information that we're going to get back from our comprehensive study, as well as the current asset conditions report, is going to be imperative to help us make these kind of decisions where we've got some equipment in our existing system their existing equipment that's gonna need taken care of. And I have a concern of taking on more parkland with no plan for future development. Are we gonna just have, green space that we mow, and then citizens are gonna, in these neighborhoods are gonna sit there wondering what the city's plan is, and we get asked about that when we have other equipment that's already aging out that we need to start looking at as well. So that's just kind of my thought on it from the park side and from the maintenance side. We've really got to start to take a bigger picture look at the park system as a whole. Yes, I agree, we've got to have connectivity. We need to look at strategically plan where parks are and where they're going to go, but also keeping in mind that we don't have all that data back just yet until we get this comprehensive plan back and this current conditions and needs assessment completed. So.
Yeah, I don't think, I disagree with anything you said there. I mean, as we sit down and look at that 3-year plan, and we sit around and, once we do our park survey, they say, hey, this needs replaced, this needs replaced, this needs replaced, and that mounts up pretty quick. I mean, so 100% I kind of agree with where you're coming from there. Mr. Harlow, I know you're back there, man. Did you want to come up and speak to this at all, or do you mind?
Yeah.
That's good, because I got a question when you're done.
That's right. Frank Harlow, 701 North Market Street, Troy, Ohio. I'm here to represent the plat, obviously, and develop the plat. I'll do whatever the park board requests of me, but I have been a part of all these other subdivisions that Mr. Drake referred to, and just like Stonebridge, we dedicated the park ground, then we turned around and sold half of it off. I don't know if you recall that or not.
Yeah.
And then when you dedicate the parkland, the residents expect the Parks Department to go in and put equipment in it.
Yeah.
So if you do that, and then the property that was just to the west of this property, I was involved with purchasing that property, building a house on it. There's still a little bit of green space off to the west of that lot that we bought. It's like a detention area, but I think the Parks Department's still mowing it. So if you guys do want the land dedicated without a plan, I think it creates more of a hardship moving forward than it does having the land there.
Yeah.
The fees in lieu of obviously help the park board quite a bit. We've been involved with that for many years, so paying the fees as we develop the lots. So whatever the park board recommends, I'm good with, but I think it's not a good thing to just dedicate some land out there that's not going to be developed, because as the developer and as the builder, I get stuck with the homeowners wanting to know when the Parks Department's going to come up with equipment in it.
Sure.
So one thing I do want to make sure we clarify is in Halifax subdivision, there is some park equipment and shelter house and stuff. That is not public access. The walking trails are public access, but the ponds and the walking trails and everything are not public access. We were trying to be friendly and do that, and we've had so many problems with the kids tearing stuff up that we've had to kind of start policing that and stop that.
Gotcha.
So just so we make sure we're clear on that.
Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, and Frank, I have there's a question here.
Sure.
But my dilemma with this, since I got on the park board, is based on what Jeremy has said, and it's kind of based in, and I'll try to use an analogy that you'll get. When you open up a wall, you want to find out everything that's wrong. So if you're going to go ahead and tear out a wall, get all the electrical replaced, right? Check for everything, check the insulation, whatever. You're going to do it one time, and then you're going to seal it back up again.
Right.
And my issue that I haven't solved, so it's not like I have a real strong position one way on this, is when you develop this, we get one shot at it. And it seems like I know we have a lot of parkland. I don't think it's used correctly, and we all kind of agree that. And I think it's also skewed towards our bigger parks that don't serve locales like this ward. We have a big giant Duke Park, and you can't take a piece of it just because on average it serves this many people. But I'm also understanding that the problem is, we don't have an infinite amount of money to develop and build. If we just had $100 million sitting in the bank account, we just start buying equipment and making these all great. Now, we could solve some of that with some, kind of small p progressive philosophies on sponsorship and trying to generate some additional revenue for it. But if we just take the fees in lieu of, the park's gone in this neighborhood. So to get to what my question is you're the one who's speaking to the homeowners, right? As these projects get built in these various subdivisions, do they tell you that they want a park as long as it is developed by the city? Are they ambivalent about parks in the neighborhoods? I know one of the things we always are told, well, they have backyards and no one needs a park to put a swing set and all that. I just don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a poll that if you would take throughout all the residents in the plat, you're gonna get a lot of different answers. Of course, the people with young kids that don't have the play set in their backyard would love to have the park over there. I think that's a given. The one nice thing about all these communities that I've developed, Halifax being one of them, and is the people that live within the community get to use there's quite a bit of green space with the ponds and the green space around the ponds and everything. They get to use that, and so most of the residents enjoy that, but it doesn't give them that playground to go to. So if the Parks Department said, yeah, we want that land and we want to put a playground in it, you're going to have 25% of the residents be thrilled that happens, if I had to guess. You know, but the flip side of that is that it's more of a problem if you dedicate the land out there and don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Then you have 75% of the residents mad because there's a piece of land there that the city owns and that the city's not doing anything with it. So if you don't have a master plan, and I understand what you're saying, that now's the time to do it, but if there's no plan in the foreseen future to do something with it, I think you create a bigger problem than just putting a piece of land out there. You know, you've got a piece of land, and we can talk about several of those,
Yeah.
that it's throughout the city, that the Parks Department just has to take care of, and there's no plan for them whatsoever.
Yeah.
Even Edgewater has a woods
Yeah.
that's dedicated parkland
Yeah.
that does nothing. So to put more parkland out there, just because maybe someday it's going to be developed, I think that's a struggle, and I think that you'll aggravate more residents than you make happy by doing that, as a whole.
Well, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate you coming up here and speaking to this. Like I said, it's obviously a new park board since the last time we went through it.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I'd like to hear more about what Mr. Whidden offered about possible bringing equipment from the schools that are closing.
Okay.
Did you mention that, Mr. Whidden?
I had it. Austin,
Or, Jeremy, I know we kind of talked about that, some of the MOU with the schools.
Yeah, I mean, that's
there's-
definitely something that can be looked at. You know, one of the things that we have been looking at as we start to really hone in on current conditions of our assets in our system now is the lifespan of equipment, and it's really short. I mean, we're talking 20 years tops. A lot of the equipment that's already in our school system is 10 to 15 years old, some of it. So I really wonder how much of that's really going to be usable.
It's going to be 5 years from now until we get this all done anyway.
It's going to be quite a bit of work to be able to dismantle those and take those apart and get the concrete off of the posts, and some of those posts might need to be replaced anyway, so that adds cost. I really wonder how cost-effective that plan will be, and we might get a short-term savings and cost us in the long run kind of thing. So that's something that definitely could be looked at, but I really question how cost-effective it would be.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Whidden? Appreciate it. Sue, Mr. Knight, could you come up real quick? I just want to make sure that we all understand the fees in lieu of and how that process works, since this is our first time. So if the Park Department accepts fees in lieu of, can you explain the route that money goes, or how that gets allocated then?
Okay. Fees in lieu, and Austin can probably do this as well as I can, but the fees in lieu would be paid with each section as it's developed. I forget how many, 9 or 12 sections we talked about for Liberty Meadows. So it'd be coming in over a number of years. The fees in lieu go into what's called the Parks and Recreation Capital Improvement Fund for future parkland improvement or development or replacement of equipment.
It's $500 per home, and we collect that upon the zoning permit application.
Okay, and when we say we, does that go then to the parks budget? Does that go to?
Goes into the
Capital.
PNR Capital Improvement Fund.
Okay, so it goes. Any other, thoughts or discussions on this? I mean, this is one that, I think we got, we were always accepting fees in lieu of for a number of years there. Mr. Wooden kind of brings up some good points with it. I think we all are in agreement. I don't want to just, we don't just want to grab space to grab green space and then not develop it, because we have enough of that space around Troy that we all think needs to be developed or something needs to be done with. I just struggle with the sense of, hey, it's, bird in the hand right here. Do you not grab it, and then that moment passes us by too. But, to all the reasons Mr. Harlow and Jeremy said, I just don't want to grab a space and then not develop it for 15 years, and it sits there and people get mad at us and it just takes up more time. That just does us no good with it. So, does the board want to take a motion on this?
I think I'd like to think more about it.
Okay.
Talk about it again, maybe.
Okay, so you want to table it,
Table it.
is what you're going for? Abby, what would the process be with that if we're going to table this, and
We could table it and we could put it on the next
you want to do that?
meeting's agenda.
Okay. Is that your motion then?
That's my motion to
Okay.
table it.
Is that going to, yes, Sue, interfere with timelines? Yep. Additional information?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Austin, I guess the only thing is, so we're working on this comprehensive plan. If we take property now, what is that comprehensive plan and how does that fit into that? Are we not going to get results for a year and a half, and then?
So we're scheduled to have the first phase of the comprehensive plan completed in August. We're working on future land use now, but that has to go through our advisory committee and ultimately approval by council. So we would be looking at August, at the earliest that we would have the comprehensive plan section or phase done, and then following would be a zoning code rewrite.
And Jeremy, the portion you're working on right now?
Frank's back there going, August.
Yeah, what's that timeline?
We hope to have that back and the report compiled in early June or sometime in June, so that we can have that data available for our July tours of the parks. So that's just the conditions and needs assessment, updating what we already had.
Yeah, I'm not saying not table it. I'm only thinking if we table it for a month, what more information we're going to find out in the next month or not. That's the only thing that I kind of go back and forth with.
So if there were going to be dedicated space, Frank, I don't know if you have an answer to this, are these existing lots as already platted, or so what's the alternative? Or if Austin knows.
Yeah, well, I'll speak to it for a second. Because we're bringing back in something that was already approved in 2021, it's all platted and the record plat's all done and everything. So we would have to go back, but there is quite a bit of green space there around the ponds and stuff. And by all means, I would try to dedicate some of that space as your park ground.
Yeah.
That's typically what we do. And so I don't have to replat the whole thing. We would try to give you part of the green space that's around the ponds that we're already doing. There's a little piece of ground in the entrance that we also, could look at. So, but we would have to go back to the drawing board and start over basically from what we got approved in 2021
Right.
to try to redo this.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Let me ask you this,
Mhm.
So hypothetically, if we say we're going to take the land real quick,
Mhm.
and, your build-out schedule here, it's going to take a couple of years, right, to get moving here.
Sure.
Where in the build does that parkland, I guess, come, or you have to start covering that area? For hypothetically, if we say, hey, we're going to take the parkland, but if we don't develop it within a couple of years, then we need to give it back, or,
Well,
is that gonna be a huge
let
thing?
me
or
ask
is that fit to- yeah.
Jill and Austin this question. What if they did something along the lines of saying that they want the right to review it when I bring in Section 2? And if I have to give up a lot at that point,
We would have to, likely do an amendment to your, general plan.
yeah, preliminary plat and go all back through that
At the
again.
planning commission.
And that's a little issue, because it's gotta all go all the way back through council and
That's a
everything.
lot.
Yeah, that gets pretty cumbersome.
Yeah.
And right now, we have a conditional approval at the planning commission level, for the general plan to be approved. So, planning commission recommended approval with the condition that you guys accept fees in lieu of.
Yeah.
You
Does
know,
that change anything or anything for anybody or not?
If I might address one thing to the park board.
Yeah.
You know, if we roll the clock back several years, I was the one that brought the leaves and the fees in lieu of to the park board. And the park board has been much better funded with the houses that we've built since then. And I think in this case, it almost goes the same way. You know, I totally appreciate that you want to try to retain the park ground if you can. With no plan, that's, for me, not the greatest idea, only because I have to deal with the residents. But the revenue that it generates you as we develop or build each house, and you get that $500 on each house, what we've done with that over the last 5 years has been pretty phenomenal to the Parks Board budget. And I think you got to take that into consideration when you think about this.
So you say you have some green space that will be HOA maintained?
That is correct, quite a bit.
Is that the drainage lot?
It's the ponds, yeah. If you look, there's 2 large ponds.
Okay.
And then there's another little green space, and then there's also the green space and the drainage easement, but that's, I don't wanna.
Not the actual drainage easement, but the
Yeah,
pond.
but the green space around the ponds is quite a bit.
Okay. So would the HOA be considering putting any type of amenities in that green space at all, or?
You know, I don't wanna say the OH would.
Well, you, as a developer, you're not
Yeah,
intending to.
yeah. There again, you gotta remember that as the HOA, and I got residents I gotta deal with, they pay into the HOA, and if I'm a nice guy and go put a bunch of playground equipment in there, somebody's gotta maintain it, so we have to take that into consideration. So I don't wanna commit it. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, but I don't wanna commit it because I'm gonna go back to the residents on that.
Yeah, we recently had a property that, was kind of in a similar situation out on 55 at the, Redwood Apartments.
Somerset.
Somerset, is that what it was? And they, agreed to put a walking path around the ponds. Was that Somerset? Was that
Yeah,
Redwood?
so the park board accepted private open space, for that development instead of fees in lieu of. So that would have been maintained by the HOA in that particular case.
And that private open space was contingent upon a walking path too, right?
Yeah, so you can't use just your stormwater ponds as open space. It has to be essentially oversized or in addition to the minimum stormwater requirements. So that's where the walking trail came in and the park equipment. I believe there's gonna be a playground there as well.
Yeah, and we wanna be a little careful with that, and
Okay. No, this is
I
what we're
I would love to do that for you, because it would save me $500 on every permit I pull.
Yeah.
But it would beat the Parks Department out of $80,000 overall.
Yeah.
So I would be really careful with that. I'm gonna have the green space there, and the homeowners association's gonna maintain it regardless. So you already kinda have that in your basket already. So I'd be glad to put a walking trail around it and put a piece of playground equipment out there and let you do the same thing. But I think that would be a bad thing to do to the Parks Department because of the revenue they would lose.
Yeah, my issue with this obviously isn't based upon the plan itself or anything. I just don't like the fact that I feel like 8 months after we kind of had this conversation about looking at all the parks and thinking, well, we need to have a plan as to how to address these when they come in. It's not your fault, Rick. It's coming back to us from 2021.
Yeah.
It's just, this seems like we're playing a guessing game still of, you know, are we ever going to have a strategic way that we're going to go about these in terms of which ward are they in, where are they located, how many parks are close by, you know, versus just the overall park picture. So I'm not going to torpedo this because I know that this project needs to get underway and it's already sailed so far down the river. But I think this is a really good example of why we should dedicate some attention to not just how many acres do we have per capita, but really what are we, when we come to these decisions going forward, what is our North Star as to how we decide whether, you know, if we're going to have a council person come up and tell us that the ward has, you know, less parkland than another ward, I kind of want to know what our standards are as to how we're actually going to approach these. So, but that's that.
Thank you, Mr. Harlow. I know you're getting worn out there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just to clarify, so that the park board understands the kind of the scope here, the requirement is either the payment in lieu of or the provision of green space. As far as dictating what that green space consists of and, you know, getting overly detailed, that's not really within the purview of the park board. It's just, do you want to preserve 3% green space in addition to anything else that can't count towards that green space, or do you want to do the payments in lieu of? I do want to reiterate to the park board that Mr. Harrelson, the comprehensive plan consultant, American Structure Point, is looking at that whole thing. We asked them to add that to their list of objectives. That's why Austin led his presentation with that information, because they have done that information gathering and done some analysis to this point. And as part of the product that they present later in the year, they will have that as part of their recommendations. But, you know, again, and you look at that ward, yes, it doesn't have as much. That ward does not have our major parks, for example, such as Community and Duke Park, which I believe, without looking at a map, are in the same ward. However, just want to be clear, I am the one that talked to Superintendent Piper, and he assured me that, you know, that their whole project is a publicly funded project. They are going to bend over backwards to make sure that that is accessible and that what is eliminated as part of our MOU is replicated in substantial form, only because, you know, their footprint is going to change, with some playground equipment and some green space in the ballpark amenities that are there now at Cookson School through Campbell Park. It just won't be called Campbell Park. It'll be part of the new campus there, if you will, but it will be, there still will be that parkland and playground equipment, brand new playground equipment, we are assured, because as part of their funding, they are replacing all of the playgrounds associated with the new build. So that will be new. The other thing I do want to comment on is that as part of the MOU, the schools have said that if they do have surplus playground equipment, that we are free to have it. Of course, Mr. Drake is going to evaluate those. I would caution being overly enthusiastic about that. We're not sure what the condition is, nor are we going to be, are we going to know what the condition will be in 2 to 3 years when they actually open up. I think it's 2027 that they're planning on opening up the new buildings. They are out to bid, but it is a time-consuming process. So we may have, and we will certainly take advantage of any of that playground equipment that is salvageable and that can be reutilized, but we don't want to bank on that.
Yeah.
And that was 0.4 miles away.
Like, 0.4 to 0.6 was the
Yeah.
range, and
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Does the board wish to take motion?
I
I will move to recommend to Planning Commission a positive recommendation to accept fees in lieu of
I will second.
this time.
Abby, please call the roll.
Mr. Emmerich?
No.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved. Next thing we have on the agenda is to provide recommendation for City Council regarding the bid authorization of the new lighting at North Market Street softball field. Is there someone to speak on that?
Yeah, just, this has been budgeted in our 2024 budget. We have started to work on compiling specs to be able to get this project done. The lighting that is currently there is extremely outdated. It's high voltage lighting with transformers on each pole. Contacted AES and they've agreed to come out. It's their equipment that feeds those lights, the transformers and the wires. They're going to schedule a crew out yet this winter to come out and remove those. And then the old poles and lights are ours to demo out, so we will be doing that. But this is just asking that the board recommend to council that we are going to approve that we are able to enter into the bid process. This has ran through Mr. Kerber. He has ruled that we do need to go through the bid process rather than the co-op to be able to secure the contract with the lighting contractor.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Drake regarding that? I'll make a motion recommending to Troy City Council to proceed with the park maintenance building, I'm sorry, this is the lights, I apologize. With the lights, the lighting at Market Street Ball Field not to exceed $175,000. Is there a second on that?
I will second.
All right, Abby, please call the roll.
Mr. Emmerich?
Yes,
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
thanks. Next is authorizing a one-year extension on the Miami Shores Golf tee signs. So this is a existing contract, my understanding is, and this is just a one-year renewal on that. Is there anybody to speak on that? Kyler's not here. But we've done this, we did this last year, and I believe this is the last year of the contract.
The third extension, we have one more extension.
One more extension after this.
That would go to 2026.
Okay. I'll make a motion to authorize the one-year extension of the Miami Shores Golf Course tee signs.
Second?
All right, Abby, please call the roll.
Mr. Emmerich?
Yes?
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
All righty, let's get to the park maintenance building project. Is there anybody to speak on that? Is that a Jeremy thing, or?
Robert, did you want to come up and speak to
Robert?
that?
Robert Watson, Engineering Department. Afternoon. So we've been in the planning phase of working with Jeremy about the new park maintenance building for a few months now. After the previous bid that came out was overpriced. So in this version, we are going to use the design-build process, so it's just a little bit different than what we've used in the past. So what we're requesting is authorization or a positive recommendation to council for authorizing council to go, or allow us to go to advertise for design-build firms. We can't put a price on this yet, as we don't have our bid specs yet from our criteria architect engineer, and in the design-build process, we have to evaluate those firms before we actually go into price talks as well. So that's essentially the crux of it, where one piece has to go before the other under the design-build process.
Sure. This has kind of been in planning process for a number of years. This is just kind of, we're getting to the final phase of that, right?
Yes, just trying to take a different route to get to the final end goal.
Okay. I'll make a motion recommending to Troy City Council to proceed with the park maintenance building project using the Ohio Revised Code design-build process, that in notification of the project will be placing a legal ad, placing a notice on the city's website, and placing a notice to professional publications, and providing notice to design-build firms with which the city has prior experience. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Abby?
Mr. Emmerich?
Yes.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson? Motion approved.
Is there anything else to come before the park board?
Motion to adjourn?
A second.
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned.